This is Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm Sofie Lindberg, your host and the Executive Director of Claim Your Potential. Get ready to embark on a transformative journey where we empower women and girls to unlock their full potential in every aspect of life. It's time to claim your potential and step into a life of empowerment. Tune in every Tuesday as we ignite your inner strength, provide actionable insights, and empower you to achieve greatness. So, are you ready to claim your potential? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Sofie, and in this episode, we are joined by Jamie Levin to discuss navigating male-dominated industries. With over 15 years of experience, Jamie is a strategic communications consultant whose journey spans a diverse spectrum of experiences, from internal and external communications to events, community initiatives, and engagement strategies. She embodies the spirit of a versatile executive armed with a remarkable track record of achievement. Her collaborative approach shines as she partners with businesses to achieve their objectives and transform visions into reality. Please welcome Jamie Levin. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jamie.
Thanks so much, Sofie. I'm happy to be here.
We are excited to have you. And I love starting off episodes just hearing a little bit about your journey. And you have 15 plus years of experience in communications. And I'm so curious, you also started your own communications company, J. Levin Communications. Can you share your journey on how you got to where you are today?
Sure. It's an interesting one for sure. So I was an athlete growing up and always wanted sports to be a part of my life. And so I figured in high school, I should do some internships. I always thought it was more important to figure out, cross off my list what wasn't of interest to me, but I couldn't do that until I experienced it. And so what I did was I worked at the Baltimore Sun in high school. I also interned at WBAL TV in Baltimore with a sports broadcaster, and he was an anchor and he was amazing. And the life of an anchor is very different than the life of a startup reporter. And so I crossed that one off my list. I also crossed the newspaper off my list, both very valuable experiences. And I respect the professions immensely. And then I went off to Maryland, the University of Maryland, got an undergraduate degree in communications, still didn't know what to do with my life. So I said, well, I can do 1 year of grad school. I went to American University, and there I also focused on communications and had an amazing experience there. Professors were professionals, and so I learned a lot. From there, I moved to New York City, where I got a taste of agency life and really went all in, had great clients, focused mostly on media, great experiences before moving down to Florida. Continued agency life here, and then worked for the Latin Builders Association, which is the largest Hispanic construction association in the United States. There, I was their PR manager as well as the editor of their magazine. And I oversaw all facets of the magazine, everything from writing editorial to photo shoot, circulation, and sales. Great experience. Also continued my PR initiatives because we had the first female president in the association's history. So that was a really unique opportunity. Then I transitioned a bit and went completely internal and had the opportunity to work at AutoNation, was very involved in the rebranding of the stores. And then automotive is, you can't get out of it once you're in it. So from there, I went to TVC Corporation, where I oversaw internal communications, external communications, corporate giving, as well as travel and events. And had a great team there, had great leadership there for about 6 years. And then I have 2 sons, and life just got a little crazy, and I needed to focus on them, and I needed some more flexibility. I love what I do, but I figured out I could do it on my own. And so I opened J. Levin Communications, and still today have the opportunity to work with a lot of people that I've crossed paths with, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Wow. I am just, wow, in terms of how many different spaces that you've been involved in. And I'm super excited to dive into that today because it sounds like you've had such a well-rounded experience in terms of, the different industries that you've been a part of while, still part of that communications lens, still getting to see the inside of especially such turbulent industries as the automotive industry. And I was kind of chuckling to the side a little bit there when you said that once you're in the automotive industry, you kind of don't get out of it. My mom actually does search engine optimization, and she's been doing that in the automotive industry. And it was very similar with her as well, where she got one job working on SEO for a car website, and then it just kind of snowballed. And then the next, like, so many experiences that she's had in the working world have all been automotive industry. So was kind of having a bit of a chuckle to the side on that one there. But speaking of all these different industries that you've been involved in, I'm so curious when we think about navigating some of those male dominated industries or those male dominated spaces that you've been in, what challenges have you encountered when it comes to navigating these spaces?
Yeah. Construction and automotive, like you mentioned, they are male dominated industries. And I think it's important, whether you're in a male dominated industry or not, to make sure you find your voice and use it. Listening is a very important skill, again, regardless of whether you're surrounded by females, males, whoever. It's important to just listen before you speak up. It's a very underrated skill. You learn more by listening than you do by speaking. So, I found my place. I found my voice. I made sure that I was well respected in a room full of men, and that it wasn't people didn't look at it as a male-female thing. People looked at it as, okay, these people are in their room because they're the leaders of their organization within our larger company. Ironically, I don't know, maybe I'm just meant to be surrounded by men. I also have 2 boys. The only other female in my house is my dog. But I've really enjoyed my career experiences and the challenges that I've been presented with along the way.
And I know that you mentioned how you've really been able to thrive in these environments. And so I'm curious if you have any strategies or tactics that you've employed to really help you thrive in spaces where you might be the minority.
Yeah, again, I think listening is a very underrated skill. I think you learn so much by listening. And then when it's time to speak up, you sound so much more knowledgeable and your points are so much more concrete because you've truly taken the time to listen to the perspective of others and incorporate some of that perspective in how you approach your response. I would say just overall, other characteristics that are beneficial, whether you're, especially in the fast-paced world of construction, automotive, retail, are just organizational skills, communication skills. Again, the willingness to speak up when you really believe in something, attention to detail, making sure all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted, and also being able, willing, and readily willing, if you will, to delegate. I mean, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and there's only so much that we can do. So if you surround yourself with a really strong team, you can get a lot done. And it's really important and also really underrated.
Yeah, and I feel like so much of that also really ties into that confidence there, right? The confidence to speak up, the confidence to go after what you want, the confidence to build that team. And so I feel like so much of this really is tied to confidence. And so when we think about navigating these male dominated industries or even just those spaces, those rooms that you walk into, do you have any ways that you've, boosted your confidence and worked to maintain that strong presence so that even in those spaces, you feel like you can take on the world, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, relationship building is huge, right? So you have your rapport with certain people, and there are some people you can push a little bit further. There are some people that you can joke around with, and then there are some people who aren't interested in joking around at all. So I think part of that confidence building is really knowing your audience so that when you go up in front of the room, you're ready to present, and also knowing what you're presenting and being prepared. There is nothing more frustrating than going to a meeting and attending a meeting with someone who's unprepared. It's a waste of everybody's time. It's disrespectful. And again, we all only have the same 24 hours in a day, and everybody's on the hamster wheel, so to speak. But I really do think relationship building is so important. And then again, just remind yourself, if you're in a room with fellow leaders, there's a reason that you're there, and you all may work for the same company, but you all have your own specialties, right? And so again, if mine's communications, there is a reason I'm put in the seat to be the communications leader for the organization. That doesn't mean I can't take feedback from the operations manager or the VP of operations. Of course, I'm going to take his or her feedback. But again, it's my job to guide them from a communications perspective as to what's a best practice. What do I think will align with their strategy? And then see how we can work together to make it work.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned almost that sense of imposter syndrome there. And I think that's something that a lot of women have, and especially in those spaces where they might be the minority, is that imposter syndrome of, why am I in this room? Why am I with all of these powerful people? I don't deserve to be here. I just can't do this. And so I feel like that's something a lot of us go through. I know that I've definitely had those moments as well where I've truly just questioned my presence in a space, in a room. And so in terms of, really addressing that imposter syndrome and learning and appreciating yourself and saying, you know what, I deserve to be here. Have you had any experience with feeling that way? And what have you done to pull yourself out of that hole, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout everyone's career, we've all felt it at some point, whether it was because we were just starting out or because we were new at a company and we're called upon in a meeting on our second day to give guidance. And that's a bit of a challenge and an uphill battle as it is, because you're still getting to know everybody and everything, and it takes a while to get there. But again, I think it's all about preparation and just reminding yourself there's a reason that you were put in the position. Whether you're the VP of communications and you lead the team, or you're the communications manager, or you're the communications assistant, there is a reason that you're in that role. So if you can just be the best possible person in that role, there's no reason for you to feel like you don't belong. And just be mindful about your contributions, be mindful about listening, and see how you can contribute to the overall goals of the organization. And then you'll naturally pave your way.
Yeah, I love that piece there where it's really, taking the time to focus on that why am I here element. So definitely agree with that there, and something that I try to remind people all the time of when I hear someone going through that thought process of why am I here? It's breaking down, well, look at what you've accomplished, right? Think about those accomplishments. Think about, they would not have hired you if they didn't think that you were qualified for this position. So I feel
Right.
like a lot of it, is really breaking through that self-doubt and being able to say, you know what, I'm going to break through that. And that confidence that I develop through breaking through that self-doubt, I'm going to not just apply, but use that to flourish in these spaces. And another piece that I am always super curious about when it comes to those that have been in those male dominated spaces is this concept of negotiation. And I say that because I feel like when I'm in spaces where it's predominantly men, there's a lot of negotiation going on, whether it's salary or it's, negotiating ideas and who gets to take the lead on an idea or who gets to take, the creative control on something, or who is leading this, or who gets to give the PowerPoint, or things like that, where there's this element of negotiation there. And so I'm curious if you have any advice for young women that are entering the workforce who are unsure of how to ask for what they want in these spaces.
That's a big question. It's important to do whatever you can to control your own destiny. I think that regardless of whether words are coming out of your mouth or not, you're communicating. And so be mindful of how you present yourself. Be mindful about how you walk into a room. Confidence plays a lot into the factor of negotiating, and being aware of your surroundings and also being prepared. Do your research, do your homework. I don't know that there's really like one way to prepare yourself for the idea of negotiation. I just think the most important thing to recognize and realize is nobody's going to look out for number one but you. And so you have to be willing to sometimes have those uncomfortable conversations, because they're going to make you more comfortable in the long run. And so while they may not feel so great while you're having them, again, you have to look out for yourself. And so be willing to go into that uncomfortable place sometimes, whether it's asking for more money, if that's an uncomfortable conversation, or seeing if there's an opportunity for your job to be partially remote, if that's important to you. or just asking those questions, because at the end of the day, it's most important that you know the full picture of what you're getting yourself into. Because if you're able to avoid a situation where you may not be happy, it helps you to focus on those other opportunities that may present themselves as brighter to you.
Right? I feel like so much of it is asking those right questions. Right? When
Mm-hmm.
you think about negotiation and you think about being in those spaces, especially for our young women out there that are, maybe entering the workforce for the very first time and are unsure of how to figure out if perhaps a position is right for them or if a career or if an industry is right for them. I feel like so much of it is around asking the right questions, getting an understanding of what is the organizational culture, getting an understanding of is this type of organizational culture present throughout the entire industry or throughout most of the industry. And if I don't agree with the culture, then, maybe I need to take a step back and go, perhaps this industry isn't for me. Or it's asking questions on, do I like my job description? Do I feel motivated to come to work? Is there, something else that's pulling me in a different direction? And it's really, having that time to self-reflect, to think and to ask. So, absolutely, I could not agree more there with just taking that time to ask questions and also as you said, looking out for you. I think that that's a big misconception that a lot of the younger generation has is the difference between selfish and looking out for yourself. I think that selfish is making decisions for you where you knowingly hurt another person, whereas looking out for you is making decisions for you that are right for you, that reflect you and your values and where you want to go in life. It might not sound glamorous to have these conversations and to sit down with yourself, but ultimately, as you said, it's what's necessary.
Right. And do your homework, use your resources, right? Like when you mentioned trying to find an industry or a career that's right for you, talk to people who've been in the industry for a while. See if maybe through, LinkedIn or 6 degrees of separation, you're connected to somebody who might be working at the organization that's of interest to you. It's up to you to do your homework also and have thought provoking conversations with people, again, who could give you perspective based off of their experience, not just off of hearsay.
Exactly. And I had one more question for you, and this is more of a big question, so it's okay if you don't have an answer right now or if it's, still needs to get thought through, but I know that you've been in so many different spaces, and I know that DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, is showing up in so many different ways in those different spaces. And so I am very curious with what you've seen in the diverse set of industries you've been involved with, how DEIB is really impacting, again, those male dominated spaces and how it's really helping shift towards more equitable representation, especially of getting women in perhaps spaces that women typically aren't in.
Yeah, so I think within even those male dominated industries, right, you have what are typically, again, I hate to stereotype, but what are oftentimes or stereotypically more female dominated roles, right? So, for purposes of this conversation, communications, there are many females and males in communications. And I would say that, when at my most recent company, my entire team was female. We supported a male dominated industry, but within our group, we are very well represented. And I think just having different perspectives, especially on the leadership team, and being mindful of focus groups and, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's age, whether it's education, whether it's geographic location or position, it's important, especially from a communications perspective, to make sure that everyone is represented, because at the end of the day, you're communicating to everybody. So I just think it's really important to continue being mindful of getting the perspectives of everybody, not just people who you may be in the same room with, and just opening up the conversation to a broader audience.
Right. It's about bringing or thinking about how can I bring as many voices to the table that we possibly can. And that's something that I am hoping a lot of sectors shift towards is less of that. All right, well, we're going to consult with those voices sometimes, if it depending on the project. And that seems to be what it's been for the longest time versus now there's a couple of sectors. For example, I'm thinking about the nonprofit sector just because that's the space that I'm in. But the nonprofit sector is really shifting towards, all right, we don't want to just consult with those voices. We want them in the big decisions. We want them at the table. We want them to be part of, these projects, to be part of strategic planning, to be part of the whole process so that they can inform the process with their diverse set of expertise and their experiences, and whether it's life experience or educational experience or work experience, having as many different voices at the table that you possibly can have, I feel like really does shape industries into, growing with the times, so to speak, right? We have such a diverse world. And for the longest time, that wasn't shown in industries, in companies specifically, where the diversity of the world wasn't showing up in those spaces. And so I'm very happy that we are starting to shift towards that. But I definitely agree with you there, where it's bringing people in that have different opinions, that have different lived experience that can really inform those changes. And to connect everything together for our listeners, what is one thing that they should take away from this episode?
Always remember to listen before you speak and be mindful of your audience. And so I guess that's two, but I think they're connected.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I think some of the best advice I've ever received is that it's great to be an advocate. It's great to say what you think, but think about the audience. And there are moments where it's okay to listen versus saying something. It's okay to be in a space and really, really want to stand up for something. And yes, do that. But there's other spaces where you might really want to stand up and say something, but perhaps you get more out of listening to the conversation than saying something. So definitely agree there. Speaking from personal experience as well, could not agree more with that point there. And for all of our listeners that would love to stay in touch with you and hear more of your wisdom and more of your journey, how can our listeners connect with you?
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Jamie Levin, or take a peek at my website, which is jlevincommunications.com. And there's a way to reach me through there if that's easier. But I'm looking forward to hearing from people and keeping in touch with you as well, Sofie.
Oh, thank you so much. And to all of our listeners out there, definitely go check out that episode description box, as all of Jamie's links and ways to contact her will be linked down there. So definitely get in touch. And I want to say thank you again so much for coming on to the podcast, Jamie. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you today.
Thanks for having me.
That brings us to the end of another empowering episode on Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed our show and want to learn more about the work we do, you can visit our website, claimyourpotential.org. There, you can access our tools and workbooks, sign up for workshops, join our mentorship program, listen to previous and future episodes, donate to support our cause, and find out how you can get involved. For even more inspiring content, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Claim Potential, where we share inspiration, educational resources, episode and program announcements, and other content designed to help you reach your full potential. Your support means the world to us, and a free way to support our show is by leaving a rating and review on the podcast streaming platform of your choice. Your feedback helps us grow and reach even more people with our empowering message. If you're unsure of how to do this, head over to our website's Leave a Review page for step-by-step instructions. Thank you to each and every one of you for being a part of this empowering community. Tune in next time as we continue our journey of learning and discover even more ways to claim your potential. Until then, remember that you have the power to create the life you desire. Keep striving and keep growing.